Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump the Antichrist? In this video, I'll be going over 10 biblical quotes that point to Donald Trump potentially being the Antichrist. I'll be using the New International Version, the NIV, for the majority of my quotes. All right, so before I dive into the 10 key biblical quotes of why I think Donald Trump is potentially the Antichrist, I want to go over what I consider the key quote in Revelations to understand what Revelations is about. So in Revelations chapter 17, verses 3, 7, and 9, there I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. Then the angel said to me, "Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings." All right, this verse was written into the 1st century AD by John of Patmos. In this particular verse, John of Patmos is lying in a trance and has a conversation with an angel, and the angel is explaining these visions that John has seen. The main point and why I think this is a key to understanding Revelations is you'll see specifically in this verse, it says the 7 heads are 7 hills. They are also 7 kings. It is saying very specifically and explained here that one thing can have more than one meaning. It could be 7 heads of the beast. It could be 7 hills. It is also 7 kings. There is more than one meaning to this verse. And that's one of the key things I think you need to understand in Revelations is don't cherry pick things and pigeonhole a verse to have a particular meaning. It can have more than one meaning, and I do believe here you are seeing it specifically saying verses will have more than one meaning. So as I go through Revelations, there will be more than one meaning that I will mention, and that is why. There is typically more than one meaning to verses in the Bible, and I think that's the key to understanding Revelations. Okay, so let's start with the reasons why Donald Trump may be the Antichrist. Reason number 1, the head wound that miraculously heals. Revelations chapter 13, verses 3 through 4. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. Okay, so what could this potentially mean? I think this one actually has 2 meanings. I think there's a double meaning in this one. Number 1, Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th, 2024, when there was an assassination attempt against Trump.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
You might recall that during the assassination attempt, Trump's ear was wounded a bit. There was some blood on his ear. And then in the Republican National Convention, which was just a little bit later, he has a bandage on his ear, but seemed otherwise fine. And then after the Republican National Convention, he gives an interview and his ear is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's been miraculously healed. Now, the second meaning to this could also refer to Trump gaining the presidency, losing the presidency, and then regaining the presidency. So remember, he was the 45th president. Then he lost the 2020 election. Biden became the 46th president. So he was, shall we say, wounded. And then when he actually tries to campaign to be the 47th president, most people, especially at the beginning, thought there's no way. He's done for. There's no way he will be president again. Everyone called him a loser who would never regain that. So when he became the 47th president, that could be also referring to miraculously healing from what was considered a fatal blow. So I do think the head wound of the beast is double meanings. Again, the assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania, and also regaining the presidency against all odds. Reason number 2 why Trump might be the Antichrist was not, and will be. Revelations chapter 17, verses 8 through 11. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. Now let's actually dive into these verses and see what we can find here. So the verse once was, now is not, and yet will come. All right, so let's go back in the centuries and think about John at Patmos in the 1st century AD. John at Patmos would have understood what a king was, what a queen was, and even the judges in the Old Testament, but he wouldn't have understood what a U.S. president was. And so for him, I think it would be totally alien that someone could be in power for 4 years, then someone else comes into power for 4 years and then regains the power 4 years later. I think that would be totally incomprehensible to John of Patmos. So I think for John of Patmos, saying that the beast once was, now is not, and yet will come is a very succinct description of Trump being the 45th president of the United States, losing the presidency to Biden, who became the 46th president, and then Trump is reelected in 2024 to become the 47th president. Again, once was, is not, and will come. So again, Trump once was a king, then he's not a king, and then he'll be a king again. And I think that was the best way that John of Patmos could perhaps describe that. Again, not understanding that a U.S. president is typically only in power for 4 years before having to seek re-election. The next part is the 7 kings in this quote. And the 7 kings could have many different meanings. I'll be going over this more and more detail in another video, where I also go over the woman and the beast and what that might actually stand for. So the 7 kings, what could that be? Now, of course, there's a historical interpretation of this, which I do believe is correct, where it goes over, shall we say, 7 kings over the history of, since ancient history, shall we say, it goes over the 7 kings that have been in power. But I think it also has a modern interpretation. So one of the modern interpretations is the Global 7 group. I don't think many Americans know about the Global 7 group, so I encourage you to Google it and read up about it. The Global 7 group includes the United States, Canada, France, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and Germany. It's a group that was established back in the 1970s to have all the Western capitalistic countries get together to try to work out financial issues and financial problems, especially at the time when OPEC, which was the oil revenue group in the Middle East, was having a lot of power. The G7 group was created to kind of balance OPEC and also have power to the Western capitalistic nations. So Trump was part of the Global 7 group, and then he was not, and then he will be again, and in that way perhaps become the 8th king. So that is, again, one interpretation about him losing power and regaining power. Now, another interpretation is the modern group of perhaps 7 kings, and then Trump being the 8th king. So one interpretation I do want to mention, when I say 7 kings, I'm talking about 7 bad kings, the kings that are part of the beast, not good kings, bad ones. And by kings, that means, of course, they're male. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're kings, but again, John would have interpreted them as being kings, again, only understanding kings, queens, and judges from his background. So king number 1 would, I believe, be Vladimir Putin, king of the North, Russia. I do believe he is the king of the North. Number 2, of course, if this was written by John of Patmos, thinking about Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel would have been considered one of those kings. And then Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, MBZ is his abbreviation. He is not a good man. I'll have you look up on your own what he has done. And then Al-Hosseini Khamenei of Iran. And you can look up what he has done to his own Iranian citizens, especially the women there. And then a very recent new king of Syria, the leader Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, just came into power, so he would be a new king. And then two other ones that I want to kind of throw in there, Xi Jinping of China and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Now, typically you wouldn't include China and North Korea when Revelations is really about the Middle East and things happen in the Middle East, but you might know that Xi Jinping is supplying technical materials to Russia so Russia can fight in Ukraine. I do believe Putin will probably actually expand past Ukraine, unfortunately. And then Kim Jong-un of North Korea has sent his soldiers to actually fight right now in Ukraine. So both China and North Korea are involved right now in fighting in Eastern Europe, and who knows what might happen in the future. Vladimir Putin, of course, had his forces in Syria and just got kicked out of Syria. I wonder if he's going to try to get back in, and then he'd be going against, again, the current leader of Syria. Now, Donald Trump, he was part of the Seven Kings, and then he wasn't in power, and now he's the eighth king. He's come back. He is, I do believe, mentioned as the first beast in Revelations. Reason number 3 why Trump might actually be the Antichrist, Abaddon. Revelations chapter 9, verse 11. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollon, that is, the destroyer. This just popped right out at me as I was reading it. Abaddon. A bad dawn. A bad dawn. It's naming him. It's giving his name. His name is Don, Donald, Don, and he's bad. A bad dawn. God is just naming him by his first name, saying he's bad, and giving us a warning here. I also think you should look up meaning of the word Donald. Donald actually means ruler of the world in Scottish, so definitely look that up as well. So I think you're really seeing here point blank, very easily to read, what Donald Trump is. He is bad. His name is Don. And right there, it's black and white. Reason number 4 why Donald Trump might be the Antichrist. Truth is thrown to the ground. Daniel chapter 8, verse 12. It, the beast, prospered in everything it did, and truth was thrown to the ground. I will mention real quick that to kind of understand the end times, it's really good to read the book of Daniel and then to read the book of Revelations. There are other books like Thessalonians and some of the chapters of 1st or 2nd John, which also go into the end times. But Daniel and Revelations are the main ones. And Daniel is kind of considered the precursor. It's written first, and then Revelations was actually the last chapter of the Bible, written last. And the two of them together, it's really good for you to read both to kind of understand, plan, or what is going to happen in the end times. So here we have in the book of Daniel talking about the beast and how truth was thrown to the ground. Well, let's kind of look at that with Donald Trump. Here I have a kind of a clip from the Washington Post. It says Trump's false or misleading claims totaled 30,573 over the 4 years he was in office. They said it was a deluge of lies, just a deluge of lies. And politicians do lie, but of all the politicians they've tracked, they're saying Trump has the worst track record of lying constantly. So again, he's a man who throws truth to the ground, and truth really doesn't have much meaning for him as he speaks.
The president's lying got worse and worse the longer he was president. So in his first year as president, he made on average about 6 false or misleading claims a day. The second year, it was 16 claims. The third year, it was 22 claims. And then the last year, the fourth year, which of course was a pretty dramatic year, he has averaged 39 claims a day.
Reason number 5 why Donald Trump might be the Antichrist. The beast is proud and boastful. Revelations chapter 13, verses 5 through 6. The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise its authority for 42 months. It opens its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name, and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. And behold, this horn, the beast, had eyes resembling human eyes, and a mouth speaking boastfully. So let's first start. There's two parts here. One's about speaking boastfully or uttering proud words, and the other is blaspheming God. Let's first start with the boastful. If you listen to Donald Trump speak, he typically does brag, and I'd like you just to listen to a few video clips of Trump speaking boastfully or uttering proud words.
With the exception of the late, great Abraham Lincoln, I can be more presidential than any president that's ever held this office. That I can tell you. I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person. Baby, who could draw crowds? Nobody can draw crowds like me. Nobody, not even close. I'm the greatest of all time, maybe greater even than Elvis, because Elvis had a guitar. I don't have a guitar. Elvis had a guitar. I don't have the privilege of a guitar. I'm a better looking person than Kamala. No, I couldn't believe it. She said, I had never heard that one. They said, no, her biggest advantage is that she's a beautiful woman. I'm going, I never thought of that. I'm better looking than she is.
The other thing these verses are talking about is whether or not Donald Trump is blaspheming God. And I will leave this up to you to determine. I'll just mention a couple of quick little things. Number one, Donald Trump actually has come up with his own Bible. And again, notice Donald Trump's name is at the top. It's above the word God. It's also above Holy Bible. Trump will also sometimes say the Lord's name in vain, and you might want to listen to this clip as well.
But you're going to support me because you're a rich guy. And if you don't support me, you're going to be so goddamn poor, you're not going to believe it. Yeah.
So I'll leave it up to you to determine. Is Trump proud and boastful? Did Trump blaspheme God? If so, then he might be a good candidate for the Antichrist. Reason number 6 why Donald Trump might be the Antichrist: changing time. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, he will seek to change times and laws, and he will exert oppressive power over God's people for 3.5 years. Well, one of the more interesting things, and Trump right now, so this recording has not come into power yet, but he will soon, Trump is currently trying to end daylight savings time. He's just trying to get rid of it. He will be changing times. This is one of the few things Trump is trying to do that has kind of a bipartisan agreement where pretty much everyone says, we do not like daylight savings time. Good idea. Let's end it. So this is probably going to pass. And under his administration, we'll be changing time.
The latest long-shot effort to keep the clocks consistent comes after the president-elect posted this to Truth Social. The Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight saving time, which has a small but strong constituency, but shouldn't.
Something Americans all over the country want: to never have to change their clocks again.
Reason number 7 why Trump might be the Antichrist: the little horn. Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. While I was pondering the horns, behold, another horn, a small one, sprang up between them. And 3 of the first horns were uprooted from before it. And behold, this horn had eyes resembling human eyes, and a mouth speaking boastfully. All right, so let's just kind of break this down a little bit. What is a horn? So in ancient Jewish scripture or ancient Jewish history, a shofar, or a horn, was blasted in battle. So that was their trumpet, their horn. So a trumpet, if you are a little horn, you would be a trump. You're not a full horn, you're not a trumpet, you're a trump if you're a little horn. So it's almost like God right here is saying, he's a horn, he's a trump, he's a smaller version of the trumpet. I find it very interesting that they specifically use the term little horn to refer to Trump. And horns are frequently mentioned in the Bible as a representation of leaders or rulers who possess power or authority. So not necessarily a king, but someone who possesses power and authority, which brings us back to the little horn uprooting 3 other horns. If you have looked at the MAGA movement and what the MAGA movement has done to the Republican Party, I'm sure most people will agree that the MAGA movement has gotten rid of the old guard Republicans, for example, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney. These old school Republicans have been systematically attacked by Trump and gotten rid of. And now they are gone, and the old school Republicans are gone, and now we're having a new MAGA party. I won't call it the Republican Party, I'll call it the MAGA Party. Trump has remade the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has now been remade in his image. He's ripped out the old Supreme Court, put a new one in, which backs him fully. We have the Congressional House of Representatives, which is MAGA, which again is in the majority, supports him fully, and same thing with the Senate. The Senate is majority MAGA, and again, Trump has gotten rid of anyone who opposed him in the former Republican Party and has remade them or uprooted them, and now has the new party in his image. So I think that's basically what it says about the three horns that are uprooted by the small one. I think that's what it's showing you right here. Reason number 8 that Trump might be the Antichrist. The beast comes from the sea. Revelations chapter 13, verse 1. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. So Trump comes from Mar-a-Lago. That's his, he calls it his southern White House. Mar-a-Lago, if you know Spanish, mar means sea, lago means lake. And Mar-a-Lago in Florida is between two waterways, the Atlantic Ocean and the Intercoastal Waterway. So the name Mar-a-Lago is a play on the words sea to lake. And then back to the verse, the dragon stood on the shore of the sea. The dragon typically in the Bible is Satan or the devil. So the dragon is at the shore of the sea, and the dragon brings up the beast who comes out of the sea, who comes out of Mar-a-Lago. So kind of think about that. I find that very interesting. Reason number 9 why Trump might be the Antichrist, the chosen one. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worship, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. Now, I do want to specifically mention this has not happened yet, at least with Trump, but there are certain things that seem to be falling into place and perhaps showing that this might happen. Number 1, Trump has specifically said that he is the chosen one. He said this in his first presidency, and I'll let you listen to it here.
Excuse me, somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one.
Now, the second part, for him to proclaim himself God in God's temple, the Temple of Solomon has to be rebuilt. I've actually been to Israel. I've been to the temple. They were talking about raising funds to rebuild it. And Trump considers himself a builder. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, but if anyone would, it sounds like Trump would be the type of person who'd want to get that Temple of Solomon rebuilt, and perhaps rebuilt in his name. I could see Donald Trump putting his name, Trump, just as he does Trump Tower, on the Temple of Solomon. Would he then walk into it and declare himself God? Well, he's already declared himself the chosen one. We'll see what happens. I hope he doesn't, but again, if the past is prologue, it might happen. Reason number 10 why Trump might be the Antichrist. I have 2 parts here. A man of lawlessness. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for the day will not come until the rebellion occurs, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. Okay, so there's 2 parts here I want to go over. First is until the rebellion occurs. So what rebellion are they referring to here? Are they referring perhaps to the January 6th rebellion, where Trump's followers were kind of inflamed into a riot and stormed the Capitol and rebelled? That was a rebellion until the rebellion occurs. I do believe this is referring to January 6th. Now, the man of lawlessness. But as far as Donald Trump recently, what he's done, 26 women have accused him of sexual assault, including his first wife, Ivana.
Even more alarming were Ivana's allegations during a divorce deposition. According to Lost Tycoon, The Many Lives of Donald J. Trump, Donald was angry at Ivana for a botched scalp reduction surgery he had done by her plastic surgeon. He allegedly pulled at her hair, ripping it off from her scalp, and proceeded to sexually assault her. She told close friends afterward that he raped her. Donald denied the incident and the surgery, and in 2015, his lawyer questioned whether a person could rape their spouse within marriage.
There was also 34 felony counts in the New York hush money case. You can, of course, read and look up that on your own. There's a federal case when Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election in Washington, D.C., specifically trying to overturn Congress and to stop them from certifying the election. Then there was the federal election interference in Georgia, where Trump specifically called Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and urged him to find 11,780 votes to overturn Biden's victory in Georgia.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
The last one recently was a federal classified documents case. Unlike other presidents in history when they are confronted with the fact they'd improperly retained classified information, which, again, more than one president has done that, Trump's case included nuclear secrets. Trump also continued to claim that he had no classified information, even though he still had them. And further, Trump directed his own employees to hide the classified information so he would not have to return it. And then the FBI came in after they asked him repeatedly, please just return these documents. It'll be all washed away. Just return it. Trump refused. The FBI came in. They found classified documents in a bathroom unlocked and in a ballroom unlocked. Again, there was nuclear secrets involved. I believe most people would say this is a man of lawlessness, a man who does not believe the laws apply to him. Part 2, a man of lawlessness. Again, back to number 10, why Trump might be the Antichrist. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 8 through 12. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the splendor of his coming. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, and all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in wickedness. Repeatedly, the media has called Trump's belief that the 2020 election was stolen, the media has called it the big lie. Trump had no facts to back this up. And in fact, there are over 60 court cases where judges, including judges appointed by Donald Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence in these cases and concluded there was no widespread fraud. Yet people believe the lie. They believe the delusion. In fact, they believed it so much, they rioted and caused a rebellion against the congressional Congress that was trying to certify the 2020 election. They believed the lie. And because they believed the lie, they committed violence. Finally, in conclusion, I've heard many people say that, oh, okay, Trump's not the Antichrist, Obama's the Antichrist, or King Charles is the Antichrist. And there might be many other people that could potentially be the Antichrist. But when you look at all these biblical quotes together, it really seems to point to one individual, Donald Trump. Feel free to read through these on your own. Read Revelations, I implore you. Read the book of Daniel, and decide for yourself. Who is the Antichrist? Who do you think it really is? I believe it points to Donald Trump, but please read Revelations, read Daniel, read on your own, and make the decision on your own. Thank you, and God bless.